All right, beautiful souls, welcome back to another episode of the You Unlimited podcast. I am so grateful that you're here, and I am doing a pulse check. I am checking in with you post eclipse to see how you're doing because I know the energy leading up to the eclipse that just happened on Sunday and Monday was really potent. So, even like the 7 days before an eclipse can happen, it can feel like chaos or kind of like it's uprooting some things that are deep within us that are desiring to move. And so I wanted to check in with you to one, see how you're doing, and two, see if you need some processing, some tools to help you kind of like somatically process out what may have been coming through for you. Because I know I myself needed these tools to process out my big frustrations and anger and all of these things that don't traditionally come up, but they were coming through for me and they were hot and heavy. And I was like, okay, I've got to move this heavy energy because ultimately it's impacting me. It's impacting the way I'm showing up for my family, in business, in life, in all areas, when we're holding these heavy burdens. And if they're moving, I always say if it's moving from a subconscious state into now our conscious awareness, like let's say all of a sudden you have this realization, like I'm really frustrated about this and it's leading me to something even deeper than that frustration. Like the thing will frustrate you and then you're like, "Oh, wait, that doesn't even have to do with that. That has to do with my mother. That has to do with my father. That has to do with my childhood." It's always something so much deeper. But I always say when it comes from the subconscious into the conscious, that's telling you it's already ready to move because it's already moving. And so now your job is to not only have it be in your conscious awareness, now you have to actually move it out of your body so that it's not continuing to take up residency and weighing down your overall vibration. Because remember, our vibration is essentially, it's got some energy attached to it. So when we're feeling light and love, that's a higher vibration than when we're feeling anger and sadness, right? Or shame and guilt. And that's not to say that those emotions are bad, that no emotions are good or bad. Essentially, it's just telling you there's some heaviness in your energy that's ready to move. It's ready to be released. And we're not meant to just spiritually bypass it, like pretend like it's not there. Because I think a lot of people do that, myself included, for a very long time. We're actually meant to take a look at it and uproot it, or else it'll still continue to take up residency. And so I want to kind of walk you through my experience over this past eclipse and what I did to actually walk myself through a process that helped me move some big, heavy emotions that were showing up as anger, as frustration, as sadness, as all of these things. So, very interesting. And I'm going to kind of pull you through like a thread that's guiding you into what you can heal. So I ended up having to cancel a flight last week. And so I canceled the flight and I was going back into my app and I was trying to find the flight credit. And I just want to make sure I did it right. Like there was a part of me that's like, I want to see it. I want to make sure I didn't mess something up in the app. I just needed to like just see it to believe it. Okay, hold on to that piece. So I went back into the app. I kept refreshing it. It was like, you have no flight credit. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not going to work because I need to use that for the next flight or I desire to use that for the next flight. And so I ended up calling American Airlines and they're like, we're seeing it on our end. And so I was like, okay, this is interesting because the only thing that's really happening right now is I canceled a flight and I'm not seeing it in the American Airlines app, like the credit. Why am I feeling so much frustration and anger specifically about this? What is the story that I'm currently experiencing that's actually bringing up a lot more than this situation, right? So when I was thinking about it, one of the threads I brought up earlier was around seeing it to believe it. I was like, ooh, that's interesting because when we think about manifestation, we have to believe it in order to see it. Where else am I needing to see it to believe it? How interesting. And then I started pulling into these other storylines that I started recognizing where it was like, okay, think about childhood in a moment where you were telling yourself, I have to see it to believe it. And what started to come through was this idea of empty promises. And I was recognizing how I had this theme of experiencing a lot of empty promises that were made that I was like, when someone would tell me something, I'd be like, okay, sure, I'll believe it when I see it. Like that was kind of like my mentality. And so I was like, ooh, this is why I feel so triggered about the flight credit. It has nothing to do with the flight credit, but it's again that thread that was guiding me into something that was heavier that I needed to move within my mind, body, and spirit. It was coming through for me. So what I did was I allowed myself to go back into those memories. What were the memories that I specifically felt like were empty promises were made potentially over and over and over again, and how did I feel about those empty promises? What do I need to do to start to move that? So what I recognized was I was feeling extremely angry at one person in particular, and I needed to move that energy. And so what I did was, this is a part of a healing process, a somatic release exercise is you can write an FU letter. Okay? Like I know that it sounds a little bit, you can label it however you want, but honestly, it's very cathartic when you get those thoughts, emotions, feelings out of your body and onto paper. Now, the goal is we don't need to send this piece of paper to anyone, actually. Instead, we're getting those thoughts out on paper so that what we can do is actually rip up the piece of paper and burn it, alchemize it, right? But the goal is to get that out of your body. Now, what I was recognizing when I was writing this letter was I was like, man, my hand is not moving fast enough for the frustration that I'm feeling inside. So another thing that I did was instead I closed my eyes. I imagined there was an empty chair in front of me. I called that person in and I just allowed myself to express all the things that I needed to let myself express and get it out of my body. Right. And so it started with anger. It started with yelling. It started with just like starting, and this isn't present day Christina. This is me letting my teenage self have a moment. This is me letting my inner child have a moment. So the things that I was saying and getting out of my body, it felt like a 14-year-old would be saying, or it felt like, like a 4-year-old would be saying, right? And that's perfect. We're not meant to rationalize. We're not meant to put a cap on it. We're not meant to withhold the way we really want to express. The goal is freely express so that it's out of your body because 9 times out of 10, what you're expressing is not actually your truth. You just need to get it out of the cells of your body so that it stops living there, so that it stops taking up residency. So the goal was for me to just say, like, I'm just going to let it rip. And like a majority of what I'm saying isn't even true. I'm just angry and I just want to have my moment. Think about your teenage self and like some of the things that maybe she was saying or he was saying when they were frustrated. Like allow yourself to have that sort of a moment because what you're doing is you're allowing it to get out of the cells of your body and release fully. And so what I recognized was I wrote the letter. I put the person in the empty chair. I allowed myself to have my moment and release it. And then I ripped up the letter and then I burned it. And it was really beautiful because I set the intention when I was burning it to alchemize the energy that was attached to it. Now, after I let myself have that moment, what I did after that was I allowed myself to go back into a memory in particular and have it play out differently. So I was desiring to actually witness how I would have wanted it to play out and how nourishing that would have felt. And all of a sudden, I started to feel more whole and more connected and more embodied and more peaceful about my childhood, about life, what about people's promises actually being fulfilled, things of that nature. And the reason that we rewrite our memories and we go back in to these experiences is because ultimately we are letting our memories copy and paste themselves into our daily life. We're basically saying, like, this is what's true, this is what's possible, and I'm using this as a template to look at life through. So if I was carrying this template of people don't keep their promises, then I was looking at a lens through life saying like, okay, this person is committing, but are they actually committing? Right? Like there was a teenage version of me and a 4-year-old version of me that was questioning that. Even though rationally I could say, of course they're committing. Like they said they were going to do it. That makes sense, right? But the wild thing is, we're copying and pasting these stories, these 4-year-old stories, these 14-year-old stories all the time. And so it's really important for them to have their moment, let them be seen and heard and felt and witnessed first and foremost, so that they feel like they can finally release it, right? When we don't feel seen and heard, we're going to harbor that forever if we potentially just never let it out of our body, right? That's where resentment starts to boil up. But the second we let ourselves feel seen and heard and witnessed, regardless of how it comes out, regardless of what it looks like, right? These tools are so powerful because essentially what I was doing was I was allowing myself to process it in a safe place. When we do not process things in a safe place, meaning I was with myself or I take myself in with my somatic healer and I process these big emotions out, when we don't do that, we essentially project it at other people, right? What's happening is we're operating at like 99% full. If we're like an operating system, we're at 99% full and then something happens and it takes us over the edge, right? All of a sudden, it's like a little thing happens, the flight credit doesn't show up, And it takes us over an edge. And it's like, oh, I have to empty out the tank a little bit so that I have a bigger capacity for what life is throwing at me. So that when something happens with my son, or so that when something happens with my partner or friends or whatever, clients, whatever that looks like, I have the capacity to be able to hold space for that. But if I haven't held space for myself, then I won't have the capacity to hold space for other people. So it's incredibly important as one, a healer, but also two, as any human being that's in any sort of relationship, we have to have capacity for the people that we love. But first, we have to create capacity within ourselves so that we can hold space for them, right? We have to go first. And so this is why it was so important when I noticed these things coming up, because it was directly impacting my business. It will directly impact your relationships and the way that you view things that are possible and things of that nature. So the second I was able to, one, let my inner child, inner teen have her moment, two, rewrite the memory, the second that was released and I felt myself feel the nourishing energy that I needed to feel, that I really desired to feel when I was younger, all of a sudden I was looking at life in a different way. I was looking at life through a different lens. It was like, of course people keep their promises. Like it makes sense. And now I have this new template that I'm looking at life through. And now this is transforming my business. This is transforming my relationships. This is transforming the way that I parent, right? And so I bring this up, and the reason I'm going into further detail on the process is because this is something you can do on your own, right? Like if you're feeling frustrated about something, instead of bottling it up and pretending it doesn't exist and then exploding on your partner, I would recommend some sort of a rage release exercise, right? Grab a pillow and punch it with the intention of just being like, I'm going to get this out. I am like so freaking mad. Whatever you need to do, process those big emotions out, because what you do not feel, you cannot heal. And so this is why I'm giving you examples about how to hold space for yourself. I think it's incredibly empowering when we can hold space for ourselves, because sometimes we can't get that last minute appointment with a healer. And so we're like, okay, I need to have tools in my tool belt to process out these big emotions so that I can show up as a parent, I can show up as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a partner, as a friend, however, all the hats that we're wearing. We have to be able to show up for those people, but first and foremost, we have to show up for ourselves. And how do we do that? We process out our big emotions in safe places so that we're not projecting them out. So that's kind of why I'm walking you through this process, and the thread that connects all of these together is it's simply allowing you to really tune in and say, okay, what is the thing that's taking me over the edge? And it's not really about that thing. It's always like 12 layers underneath the thing. So that process, again, that I walked through, it was me noticing, okay, the flight credit isn't there and it's making me feel very angry, right? How interesting, because this is not something that you would really normally be angry about. What is the story that I'm correlating this to? And that was, for me in particular, it was around, I have to see it to believe it. Okay, what else is that related to? It's around me thinking that because I was being told that things would happen and then they didn't follow through. And that made my inner teen and inner child incredibly angry. But I didn't have the space to process it then, right? So, how perfect that the flight credit wasn't showing up so that I could heal my inner child and my inner teen that were like, can you just see me? I want to have a moment, right? And so I just want to advise you and kind of just guide you into the fact that it's never about the thing that's triggering you. It's always something deeper underneath the thing. And so it's about really getting clear on what is it pointing me to, and do I have the tools to be able to move that? Now, I have tools to be able to move that, and I have healers on retainer for that reason too, because there's always more to process out. It's incredibly important for people to also hold safe spaces for us, because that allows us to really relax into that state, and for our deepest, darkest parts of ourselves to really be seen and moved and witnessed. So twice a month, I have people that are holding spaces for me. I have one 2-hour session that happens in person, which is incredible. And then I also have another session online, along with actually many other ways that I process things through for that reason. Proactively, I book these sessions out because I know that I want to be supported. I know that I want to proactively process things out. I know that new things always are going to come up. And so that's what allows me to really show up and serve in business, in partnership, as a mother, holding all the balls in the air that I'm holding in the air. If I didn't have these tools or safe places to really process out these big emotions, I wouldn't be able to show up in the capacity that I do. And so this is just to share with you, like, the healing is never complete. Like I think sometimes we're like, I have to be a masterpiece with all of my finished edges before I can fully show up and serve and do all these things. And it's like, you're a masterpiece exactly as you are with your unfinished edges, and give yourself safe spaces to paint more, to understand the brush strokes, to understand the frustrations that come through, to understand how you feel in relation to the painting. Give yourself that process to be able to say, this painting is never done, which means my expansion is never done, which means my healing is never done in a good way. Because what healing essentially means is I'm expanding into the next level version of myself. I now have released this glass ceiling on what I thought was possible and what I could make. I'm now showing up on bigger stages because I feel safe in my body, even though my inner child didn't for a minute. So I had to go back in and see her, right? Feel her, right? And so all of these things that we're looking at life through these different lenses, this is why we quantum leap so quickly in business when we have safe spaces to move big energy, which is why it's exactly what I do. And I honestly believe that everyone needs this in business and in life. That one of the fastest ways that you can quantum leap is to heal what's in the way of what you want, because we can find business strategy on ChatGPT. We can lean into incredible mentors, but essentially what we need to do too is we could have the perfect strategy. But if for whatever reason we have this strategy, but we have fear moving forward with it because of a childhood memory or things of that nature, we won't move forward with it, or we will block the success coming in towards us, or people stepping into our offers in whatever way that looks like. So it's really, really important for us to heal what's in the way of what we want. Couple that with business strategy, and that is how you deeply quantum leap into your next level in business, in parenthood, in partnership, and all the spaces and places that we play. So, this is my PSA for today. And I'm just sending you so much light and love, because if you were anything like me, I found this particular eclipse incredibly triggering in a good way, although it didn't feel good at the time, because I needed to move some big heavy things that were showing up in the surface. So if that was you, and if even if it wasn't you, I'm sending you so much light and love, but I wanted to equip you with more tools so that down the road, when these things do come up, when you do feel frustration or anger or sadness, that you'll have some tools in your tool bank to be able to come back to and say, okay, how did Christina say to process that out? What were some of those things that she mentioned? Maybe I should proactively lean into a healer, right? A business intuitive, someone who can hold space for me to not only come up with business strategy, but simultaneously heal all the fears that are in my way that are creating a glass ceiling that I'm not even aware of that exists. Right? That's why I always couple the two. That's why I'm a business intuitive. That's why I'm a healer, a shaman, all of these things. Like I pull all of these tools in because they're so important. And so we need all of these tools to be able to say, this is what allows me to feel safe to move forward. This is what allows me to go after the bigger stage. This is what allows me to speak my truth. This is what allows me to put the big offer out there that I've been fearing or pivoting in a way that has me have a lot of fear. Am I allowed to release this big thing that's making money and step into the thing that actually really lights me up? And how can I start to have that make money, right? Again, business strategy with healing, that is the mecca for quantum leaping. So I hope that this was supportive. I'm sending you so much light and love, and I cannot wait to connect with you next week. But until then, I will chat with you here very soon. And check me out on my Instagram broadcast channel. If you haven't joined me there yet, I would absolutely love to have you. This is where I'm dropping downloads during the week. So if you don't want to wait until next Tuesday for the next episode, and you just want really quick channel downloads that are going to help to support you moving through your week and get some healing, some guidance, some business strategy, join me on my Instagram broadcast channel. It's going to be linked down below in the show notes. It's so much fun. I'm also pulling oracle cards in the space. You can use your intuition to pull a card each week. So it's just a lot of fun. And it's a way that you can take this even deeper and allow yourself to really step into this next level of business and life. So with that, I'm sending you so much light and love, and I will chat with you very soon. Mwah.